Good morning. Now that you're all awake with Frank's rousing introduction, I think we can start the meeting. Okay. Our subject today, and I'll introduce Will Gertig a little later, we'll be talking about social media. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you, Frank. Financially, again, just leave it. Can anybody hear me? All right. We are again financially solvent, and we are very happy to announce that we've been very generous to the food pantry. You people have been very generous to the food pantry. We really appreciate the free will offerings, and I know the food pantry appreciates those as well. Our membership is up to 1626. As you recall, our membership, peaks in June, and then July drops off because people's computers are still working, and we sort of slowly build up. But we're building faster than last time because we were at about 1,700 at June 30th, and as you can see, we're approaching that number much faster this year. So I guess the change over at Windows 8.1 is having an impact. Okay. We're going to have our winter classes beginning. The classes will be on the website, all the classes with a full description. But the classes coming up in the immediate sense will be an Introduction to Computers class. That's 3 sessions. We're going to have a class on using Gmail, which is 1 session, and Advanced Picasa is a 3-session class beginning at the end of January. Obviously, there are more classes in February and March, but those will be on the website. You can pick up the details and descriptions of those classes. I also would like to announce that Jeff Stripes has pulled together a SIG on advanced photography. Now, don't let the word advanced frighten you. This is a learning opportunity. But it is more than shoot and point and shoot. It's learning how to use your camera, its advantages, the features, using how to use manual settings. And the SIG is going to meet, their next meeting is Monday evening, this Monday coming up, at 7 p.m. in the lab. So if you're interested in photography, join the group. I know they have 11 or 12 people, some have gone to Florida, but it's going to be a very active group, and we're really looking forward to that being a viable operation in the club. If you need more information, you can contact Jeff at either his phone number or at the email. Monthly newsletter. How many of you received your newsletters? We still have quite a few that haven't. If you haven't received your newsletter, you have to, it's possibly or very likely an issue with your profile being updated with the proper email address. But if you did not receive it, if you go to our website, the newsletters are all posted there. So you can either read it online or download it as you might want to do if you don't get it automatically. Also, if you have any information for the newsletter, please contact Bob Markham or Jim Nelson. Community matters. The next board meeting, which will be the annual board meeting, will be here, Grendel Hall, at 6 p.m. on 21 January. Also, there's a mistake here. The lodges and administrative office, this is correct, but also on Christmas Eve, Prairie Lodge will be open until noon, and Meadowview will be closed all day on Christmas Eve. Passing on. Actually, I want to go back. I was going to do it later, but this is probably a better time to do it. How many of you received Lauren Lee's email blast yesterday? Okay, about half. Huh? All right. Well, first of all, if you have not received that, go to the website, the community website, go to Documents, click on Documents, and it is posted. You have to scroll down, I think, one section or two sections. It's there, and you can read it online as well. But there's something that's important in there. Effective January 1, as you're all aware, there was a change in the accounting procedures from the association. Accounting used to be done locally here. It's been transferred to Pennsylvania, and First Services is going to be handling the accounting function. As a part of that, a big part of that, I might add, is your assessments, okay? Without your assessments, we do run budget deficits. And so there are some changes in terms of how your assessments will be handled because of the move to Pennsylvania. And I'll just go through these quickly, but they're in that letter, and you will be receiving with your assessment notice a letter from First Services explaining this in more detail. I just want to make sure everybody's aware that it's an issue they should address depending on how they pay their assessments. If you pay your assessments on a direct charge to your bank account monthly, the only change will be a slight change in the date. They'll take care of the transfer. If you have it on a direct charge quarterly, you won't have to do anything, but you will no longer be quarterly. It will be converted to a monthly charge to your bank account. If you are paying by check, just sending a check in, there's a voucher. There'll be a voucher slip in the letter. The only difference there is you still send a check. You're just sending it to a different address, and the envelope should show that. If, on the other hand, you're sending it by by Chase Bill Pay or something, one of those services, you will have to go in and change. And there's instructions in that letter, or there will be instructions in that letter. You will have to go in and change the information on your bank account because you're going to have to send it to it. It's going to a different bank. It's going to a bank in Philadelphia Philadelphia area, rather than a local bank. So I do want to make sure that you're aware of the changes. Again, they'll be explained, and they're explained in Lauren's letter. They'll be explained in a letter that comes with your assessment, but it's something you have to take care of in December when the assessments come out. I don't know that I have to point this out, but I think I should anyway. There's a wonderful display out there of trains, and if you miss it, you miss something. Take a few minutes to go and look at it. It's really a great job that it's got to be considered the focal point of the decorations for the holidays in the lodge, and it's well worth. And if your grandchildren are interested, take them. There's a little stand there where the smaller kids can get up and look at things. It's open daily from 11 to 3, but on weekends it's open till 5 p.m. The Winter Holiday Concert is tomorrow for the Prairie Singers. I'm not sure you can get tickets today, but you can get tickets at the door tomorrow. It'll be in Grendel Hall here, and that's also in Lifestyles as well. The band concert is next Thursday and Saturday. Again, tickets are available as below here at those times. I think you can also, if there are tickets available, I know you can buy them at the door, but or you can contact, I know, just anyone who's in the band, and they'll either get you or they have tickets. Okay. We're going to move that. Oh, the hum? Yeah. I'm still humming? Thank you. Okay. Also, Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, Grafton Township Assessor, the Civics Committee is going to have him out to speak about what he's done to the assessments. He started a unique and new program. If you're in Rutland Township, don't think that this may not affect you, because it may, because obviously when they put this whole thing together, the combination of Rutland and Grafton has to pay for the school system, and that represents the bulk of your taxes. So he's going to be here at 9 o'clock, 9:30, excuse me, on December 10. He'll be in Fountain View, and he's going to explain his new system of assessing properties. I understand, we're in Rutland, so I haven't seen numbers, but I understand that some people have had some very large swings in assessments, more out of Sun City than in Sun City, but nonetheless, it might be something you want to pursue. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Will Gertig, who's going to talk to you about how to safely use social media.
Hope this does work. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks, George. First off, I'm really impressed with the turnout. I'm really impressed. I couldn't even get my wife to show up. She said she had more important things to do. But she also says that, why do I need to go to the computer club? I got you. You know. I wanted to talk a little bit today about social media. Now, social media is something that we've run regular courses on here. We typically talk about Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm getting feedback again. I'm gonna try, okay. I'm gonna try not to do that too much. We talk about Facebook, we talk about LinkedIn, we talk about Google+, we talked about texting, all of those kinds of things. And we run this class on a regular basis several times a year, over the last couple of years. Generally it's done in the summer, and it's popular. We generally get a room full of people, so much to the point where we sometimes fill up 2 classes. So we thought we would bring it to the club in general and talk about what's changed, because it has changed. Just like anything else, nothing stays the same. Cars get better, maybe. Prices go up, prices go down. Things get old, things get new. We're kind of in the position right now where things are changing when it comes to social media, and that's what today's presentation is all about. Oh, good, wrong way. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is, why do we want to network socially? What's this all about? Why do we do this? What are our options in doing so? What's the pros, and what do we need to watch out for? And there are things we need to watch out for. Who uses it? That's really the crux of what today's presentation is about. Who uses it, and then what we need to do as mature adults to be able to communicate to those specific age groups. If we have time, I'll do a bonus on how to protect yourself and your system when surfing the internet. In White Sky, I get phone calls all the time, especially the day after a major holiday like Thanksgiving. I can't tell you how busy I was on Friday with people calling me saying, my grandkids were here for the holiday and did something to my computer, and I don't know what they did. Well, when they do that, they a lot of times make changes to your system, and sometimes these changes aren't for the better. So I'm going to talk about what you can do to protect yourself for Christmas when they come over and do it again. Okay, so why do we network? Well, first off, we're social animals. We have this absolute desire to communicate. From the early times, we wrote on cave walls, we drew pictures, we do all of this kind of stuff. We need to communicate. We have this absolute desire. We're kind of like wolves in that aspect, where we run together in packs. We initially did this social interaction by something we called conversation. Remember that? We would stand at the fence corners and talk to each other. Well, with today's advent of computers and technology, we don't talk as much as we used to. Actually, we do. It's the people we're talking to that typically don't do that. Communication really is social networking, and that's what we're all about here. So here's the options we have today for networking. Obviously, today we still have the ability to converse. Written language, remember that? Do people write letters anymore? Probably not. I still get an occasional postcard, but mostly I buy them now for the pictures. Internet-based tools. This is what we do. Things like Facebook, LinkedIn. Remember MySpace? Maybe not, but it doesn't exist anymore. It's gone the way of the dinosaur. So has Foursquare. Foursquare was a social networking site that was real popular for about 2 minutes and then disappeared. We're into things like apps like Facebook and LinkedIn and others. We have texting apps and tools like Twitter. And if you're familiar with anything in Microsoft Office version, is it 2010 and higher, you get Link? 2013 and higher. 2013 and higher, you get something called Link, which is Microsoft's answer to a social networking chat room. Texting being smart rooms. How many people text? So we do have people that understand the concepts. Great, great. Email, everybody has email, right? 90% of you know how to use it, 10% don't. That's why we run a class. Okay? Please, 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 if you don't know how to do email, come to the Gmail class. Okay? It's well worth it, and we'll teach you to do things like attachments. Video chats. How many know about a thing called Skype? Yeah? How many use it? Some. Okay, good. This presentation focuses primarily on the web and smartphone options for social networking, okay? We'll talk about Facebook for the web and for the smartphone. We'll talk about LinkedIn for the web and smartphone, and we'll talk about Google Plus for the web, okay? Facebook is still the most popular site for social networking, both on a web app and on the internet. It has a streamlined version of the web app that interfaces directly to the web. I like to call that the light version because you definitely cannot do everything with the web, with the smartphone app that you can with the full web app, but you can get the job done. Facebook is about in minute number 28 of its 30 minutes of fame. There's billions of accounts out there in Facebook. And every month, about 1 million of them go dormant. That means people like me have got Facebook accounts and don't look at them, don't use them. So while Facebook can come back and say that, yeah, we have all of these accounts, the question you got to ask is how many people are using them, okay? You know, Facebook isn't being used by everyone. It's being, and I've got some discussions in here as we go a little bit further on that will talk about how we use Facebook. And really, if we want to communicate socially, what we need to do to change. LinkedIn is the business version of Facebook. Surprisingly, LinkedIn is actually growing in popularity. Remember we used to have, and I think we still do, chambers of commerces, right? Where all the business leaders of a given community get together on a regular basis, where they network. Network is a fancy way of saying we have coffee and we discuss the things that are important to us. It's a how can I help you, and by helping you, helping myself kind of a deal. Okay? That's really what it's all about. LinkedIn has turned into something a lot more than that. I use LinkedIn pretty significantly. LinkedIn for me I'm an independent contractor. Several years ago I used to work for a company and I went out on my own. I'm hired now for a skill set, which by the way is the way a lot of professional people are going towards. Companies don't want to hire me on because they only need me for a certain amount of time. I just finished earlier this year I finished a huge endeavor where I helped separate a couple of business divisions at HSBC. HSBC sold off one of their credit card divisions to Capital One. And I ran that project where we actually broke those computer systems in half. Some of them went to Capital One, some of them stayed at HSBC. And it's a huge thing, but that's a temporary endeavor. So, believe it or not, I got that job through LinkedIn. People went to LinkedIn and looked at my page to determine my qualifications. And then they brought me in based upon that and said, you might be the person we need to do this. So LinkedIn for Business is very important. Not only does it do that, but you can also, as a business, advertise for people. You can say, I've noticed in your LinkedIn status that you're currently looking for work. I have something that may fit you. Would you like to come in and interview? So it's more of a personalized one-on-one relationship. Typically, it's used by professional people. While anybody can get a LinkedIn account, a person that's retired probably has no need for one because they're not dealing with that level of business unless they're still active in the business community. Okay, an example, probably I'm going to use Bill Zaletti as an example. Bill probably is still very active in the business community. He's very active in the community here. He probably would want his fingers into all of those business relationships in order that he can make the board here run more efficiently. Bill, am I right? Yeah, see, absolutely. So he does use this. Now, he may not use it for a local plumber, but he may use it to find, for instance, an accounting firm. So you get the idea as to where we're going with that. These are business level communications. Google Plus is Google's version of Facebook. You know, Google's this huge monster. Of course, they have to have their own version of everything. It really is Facebook, but it's Facebook not geared to us. I find the Google version, Google Plus, to be a little disconcerting. It's not as structured as Facebook. It's kind of all over the place. And quite honestly, it hasn't really caught on that much. It's aimed more towards the younger demographic, the 18 to, I'd say, 30 age group in that age bracket. And you know, when you're 18 to 22, you have more important things to do than worry about Google Plus. And when you're 22 and older, you probably have kids, and the last thing you need to do is to play around with a social media site. So it just hasn't found its niche. I honestly suspect at some point in time Google Plus will be terminated by Google. Google does this for about a year. They try something, and if it doesn't catch on, they'll kill it. So I would expect this at some point in the future to go bye-bye. But while it's here, it does a lot of really neat things, and it has a lot of really neat features. There are downsides to social networking. Social networking on the internet and really on a personal level can be very, very privacy exposing. Okay. Years ago, you guys remember Irma Bombeck?
Yeah.
Okay, she wrote a book many years ago called The Grass is Always Greener Over the Septic Tank, right? She talked about her family taking a vacation and who she had to tell about the family going on vacation. Okay, and you got to tell the milkman, you got to tell bakery, you got to tell all of these people. Well, one day her husband came home from the city and said, I heard from so-and-so and so-and-so, who was related to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, that we're going on vacation for 2 weeks. You know, it's the old telephone type of system. I tell you, you tell them, they tell them, they tell them. You gotta be careful who you tell when you're gonna be away. It happens not only via conversation, but via the internet. And we tend to be very trusting when we post information on the web. After all, when we post in Facebook, we're posting to our friends, right? Right. Sometimes your friends could post that and refer that to their friends, and now it's out of control. So there are a couple of really simple things that you can do. Don't tell others you're not gonna be home. Facebook smartphone, the Facebook app, allows you to do something called checking in. That says, because we're using these on smartphones, and smartphones have GPSs on them, right? It allows us to tell everybody on via our Facebook page that all we have to do is click the button that says check in. Check in says, I'm currently located at Bob's restaurant. Well, what does that tell everybody else? That's your friend. Tells them you're not home, right? Is that a smart thing to do? Oops, I lost me. Did I lose me? Okay. I'm not here ringing back, so. But is that a smart thing to do?
Absolutely.
And yet we do it all the time. We don't even think about it. We go on vacation. I see this all the time. We go on vacation. We're out in Hawaii, and we take a picture of the volcano, and we post it to Facebook because it's such a gorgeous picture, right? It is gorgeous, right? Everybody says, what a beautiful picture. And oh boy, your house is open. Do you ever think about that? Probably not. Probably not. Don't do it. Those pictures are gorgeous. Share them after you get home. And all you have to do is put a notice on Facebook that says, that says, here's what we saw when we were in Hawaii 2 weeks ago. Oh, I guess they're not gone. Don't take advantage of protection tools. We need to take advantage of the HTTPS websites. We don't. When we go to a website, especially Facebook, we can enter HTTP Facebook.com, right? What happens to the amount of information that gets transmitted using an HTTP? It's open to anybody that can see it. If you use HTTPS, which is the same level of encryption used by banks and stores and things like that, your transmissions are then protected. Nobody can intercept them. So take full advantage when you use Facebook on the web, or LinkedIn on the web, or Google Plus on the web. Make sure you use HTTPS. In fact, in the options in Facebook, there's even a place where you can check that to make sure that that gets used all the time. Facebook put that in probably 2 years ago. How many of you didn't know it was even there? Probably a lot of you. They're trying to help us protect ourselves. We're our own worst enemy. So, we've got all this stuff that we can network with. We can share all this information. But who do we want to share it with? Well, to do this, I'm going to talk a little bit about demographics. Okay, because we need to know who our demographics are in order that we can communicate with them properly. All right. So mature adults are those of us that are 50 and older. Some of us are retired, some of us aren't. Okay, but we're generally all considered to be mature adults. Sometimes people put this in the 55 and older group. We have the adult group, which is just the ones underneath that. Typically, they're 25 to 50. Generally, they're our kids. The millennials, typically 18 to 25. These are the ones that are right out of college, and those still in college. Teens, the 13 to 18-year-old group, okay? Still trying to figure out what they want to do, not really quite sure, but boy, they've got technology down. They understand how to use it completely. And in fact, they've grown up with it, so it's intuitive. They may not understand how it works, but they certainly can make it work. The tweens, the 8 to 13-year-old group. Yes, cell phones are down in ages as young as 8 and sometimes younger than that. I don't want to say they're cell phones. A lot of times they're iPods. And iPods allow a lot of the same communication tools that cell phones allow. Okay? And by the way, if you're in the tweens, teens, and millennials, you have an iPhone. You have an Apple device. If you don't, you're an outcast within your organization. You have to have an iPhone. That's it. End of discussion. The peer pressure to have an Apple product is so high that in some cases you're ignored if you don't transmit using one of those devices. Seriously. Seriously. Where did I get that information from? Well, in doing the research for today's presentation, I did talk to a lot of people in all of these age groups. I actually spent 2 wonderful days with my one of my granddaughters who is she's going into 8th grade. Okay, and I got the real skinny from her as to what kids her age were doing. I actually talked to some kids that were in high school, both from the freshman level to the senior level, and I wanted to know what they did. I talked to kids that were in college. How do they communicate? And how do they communicate to us? And then I talked to my kids myself. My own kids, my three, to find out how they communicate with me. Quite honestly, they know that while I have the social networking tools, they know the best way to reach me is to either text me or call me on the phone. Because I don't look at social media. I don't want to look at social media. I don't have any desire to do so. I got into social media probably the same way that most of you did. I got there because my kids were posting there and I wanted to see what my grandkids were doing. Right? Isn't that why you're all on social media? So you can see the pictures that your kids have taken about your grandkids? Yeah. They put them on Facebook and I wanted to catch up what it is. I find out more on Facebook than about my grandkids than I find out by talking to my wife. She takes the phone calls, and I thought I told you that. Of course, then it's my fault, you know. I have limited hearing. Mature adult communication profile. When we communicate, us, our age bracket, when we communicate, we tend to use methods that we're very familiar with. For us to go into social media was a huge step forward. Why? Because we went there kicking and screaming. We didn't want to do it. We wanted to stay familiar with the things that we know. What do we know? The conversations at the back of the fence. Phone calls, letters, cards, thank you cards. Remember all of those things? Those don't happen anymore. So for us, in order to communicate with our kids, to stay in touch with our kids, we had to change. We didn't like it, but we did it. Right? I see many of you shaking your heads, so you see exactly where I'm going with this. Our preferred methods, still, we get together and we talk. Or we talk to each other on the phone. That's our preferred method. We're just not up to speed with the rest of the demographics. They tolerate us. They do. It's the best word I can come up with. They throw us a bone and say, oh, he's trying. Okay? And they are. That's not their preferred method of communication. If I send a text to my granddaughter, she sends me one back, and she okay. All right, he sent me a text. I got to do something with this. All right? It's not the same level of communication that she does with her peers. First off, she doesn't even text with her peers. She uses another app. And I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But they kind of throw me a bone and say, here you go. All right? People assume that if we have social accounts, that we check them. Let me tell you a story here. This is honest to be true. I have a relative by marriage. It's my brother-in-law's kids, recently married. Okay, they're younger. They don't really use Facebook. They have Facebook, but they don't really use it. They use other tools. But they threw a party for my, I think, brother-in-law or brother and sister-in-law or something like that, and they posted it as an event in Facebook. Okay, and they sent that all out to everybody that knew these people. They sent this. It's kind of like a private message via Facebook. Okay. Guess what? We missed it. We missed it. Why? Because I don't look at Facebook. They gave me probably a 3-week notice, and I check Facebook maybe once a month if I'm lucky. I got a phone call from my sister-in-law a couple of days after that saying, where were you at the party? What party?
Yeah.
Well, they put it on Facebook. I said, so? And the expectation was that everybody uses Facebook. And they weren't in the least bit concerned that we didn't. There was no alternative. There was no RSVP. There was no concept of we should really check to see if everybody had got this invitation. No, nothing. That's the idea. That's the concept of the way these kids work. Is they do things in a collective and presume that all the communications work. This is the age group that uses Twitter, that cannot make a decision by themselves. They need to have 15 of their friends agree with them. And that's why Twitter is so popular for that age bracket. Twitter, they can communicate with all 15 of their friends at one time in a large chat room kind of a concept, and they can make a decision as to what they want on their pizza. It's the way that they communicate, though. And because they do it that way, we've got to find a way to adapt to that if we want to communicate with them. Now, in business, it's easy enough to say the heck with it. You don't play, you can play by my rules, or you don't play. And we can do that in business, and in many cases we have. Sometimes business caves in and says these people are so talented that we need to adjust to bring them in. Socially, I don't need you. I'm the one that's the money. Okay? I don't need you, you need me. That kind of isolates me. They need a loan, guess who they come and see? And they find a way to communicate with me. When we're talking to people of our own age group, right now we're most comfortable with using Facebook. We're familiar with it, we've used it for a couple of years, we understand even though it's changed, we gripe about the changes, but we use it. We continue to come back to it. And we find that our friends are using it as well. Maybe not as consistently as we might. Like me, I look at it once a month, if that. But at least I look at it occasionally. Okay? People know if you want to get a hold of me, the best way to do so is to call me. And if they're my friends know that. Or they'll drop me an email. Okay, that's another way of socially communicating. I check my email almost every day, my personal email. Okay, Facebook not as much, but you still have a way of reaching me socially. In LinkedIn, we use primarily the web app. We do that kind of level of communication, and when I'm looking for a new position, you better believe it, I'm on it several times a day. Because it will benefit me to stay current, right? If I need a new job, if I don't stay on top of that and make sure that that thing is up to date, I'm the one who loses out. Texting. We still do texting. We still use it briefly. We use one-liners. I use texting when I'm trying to get in touch with my wife. She's still working full-time. It's easier for me to say is, I caught the later train, I'm going to be late for dinner. One-liner. Can you pick up a gallon of milk on the way home? I don't carry on large conversations with texting. Doesn't make any difference that I get all my texts for free with my phone plan. It just takes me too flippin' long to type that. Video chatting. We use Skype on a very limited basis. I actually use Skype for business more. I use Skype when I want to communicate visually with people across the ocean or across states. But we, as a demographic, use Skype for what purpose? To communicate with our children. Okay, I have a client that was so tickled that after 5 or 6 years of her son being overseas in Germany, we finally put a web camera in on her system. She got into Skype and she could finally see her grandchildren, who she hadn't seen yet. Just think about how dramatic that was. Technology allowed her to now communicate at a whole nother level. Socially, communication at its best. There we go. When we're communicating to our kids, typically we use the web, not so much the smartphone app, because we really haven't figured out how to use smartphones. We've got them, but we really haven't figured out. We know what we know, we just don't know what we don't know. We use LinkedIn. Those of us that have a need to use LinkedIn have that need to be mobile, have that need to be very communicated. I've got it on my smartphone. I can pull it up at a moment's notice. Texting, again, communicating to our kids, brief one-liners. How you doing today? Did so-and-so fall out of a tree again? Okay, that kind of stuff. Video chatting, if we need to do so, it's generally long distance, generally not close by. Okay? When they're talking to us, they tolerate us. They use Facebook web version. Okay? They're generally kind of excited when we do, because it shows we're doing something in technology. They may use LinkedIn if it's professionally related, not always. Texting, again, one-liners coming to us. They don't want to overwhelm us. They're very aware of our needs, our needs and our capabilities technology-wise. And let's be honest with you. Be honest with yourself. Can you do everything your kids do on a computer? Probably not. So they understand that, and they're more tolerant of that. Video chatting, a lot of times they'll come over and help us set up Skype. So we can do that, right? Okay? For us going to the college age kids, the 20-something, the direction that are trying to figure out what they're trying to do. We will use Facebook. They'll tolerate us again, because generally they're pretty excited with the fact that we're even trying it. LinkedIn, we probably don't use it. Texting, again, one-liners. Skype, generally this would be nice if we're talking to kids that are in college. We haven't seen them in a while. Okay? If we can catch them on Skype, they're usually very busy, then the conversations we're having are very limited, because they're engaged more with their studies and their friends than they are with us. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way it is. But if we can catch them, it's a wonderful experience. So again, they pretty much tolerate us. When they're going to us, they almost never use the Facebook website. Almost never. Why? Because everything they do is on their smartphones. Everything they do. They're all about checking in. They're all about sending photos. They're all about doing those kinds of things, especially when they're communicating with us. Because it takes them less time, and they can do it at a moment's notice. They can say, I'm on the bus going between classes, or I'm on the bus going to school. I can send out a quick note. Okay? LinkedIn, they probably don't communicate with us with LinkedIn at all. Texting, again, one-liners. They don't encourage us to use this. They use Twitter a lot to communicate among themselves. They don't text too much, not between each other. Some, but not a lot. They use other things. Skype, again, if they're going to us, limited version of Skype, they tend to use FaceTime to talk to all of their friends. Why? FaceTime is an Apple app, and they all have iPhones. They all have iPhones. You will rarely see a college-age kid or a young adult that is not using an iPhone. And for them to go over to Android is a huge leap of faith. Huge. I mean, Apple's got them hooked. They really do. We want to talk to our grandkids. We have to adjust a little bit. Now again, our grandkids, if you're like me, our grandkids are just coming into their age where their parents are letting them to get these kinds of devices. So it's a leap of faith for their parents and very, very secure use. But when they start conversing with us, they see the benefit that all of a sudden that they can step out of the picture and send them to us for their questions. So all of a sudden that gives them 10 more minutes of time on their day. And I kind of welcome that. I enjoy chatting with my grandkids via Facebook, via Twitter, via whatever they want to do with me. I'll be flexible and learn whatever she wants me to learn so that I can stay in her social circle. And I'm sure you're the same way, right? I'll do whatever it takes, okay? Now, when she's talking to us, how do I get the pointer to work on this? Which button? The big button? The little button? The laser pointer.
The pointer right there.
Oh, I have to have a different pointer.
Right.
Okay. All right, so much for technology. See where it says Snapchat? Snapchat is the app that tweens and kids in high school use. Snapchat is Skype, is Instagram, is Twitter, is texting all rolled into one. Okay? Snapchat requires, I shouldn't say a lot, allows parental supervision. So if I create a if my granddaughter creates a Snapchat account, her mom has to sign off on it, and her mom has access to it.
Good.
Okay, that's the positive thing about Snapchat. So, and there's ways around it. Yeah, you have to say how old you are. If you say you're under 13, well then you can get away with it. But legitimately, and most parents that I know today want to see what their kids are doing on the web. They want to see what they're doing on their smartphones. All three of my kids regularly look at my grandkids' smartphones. And that's their right as parents. There is no such thing as privacy when you're a kid, right? You gotta build that level of trust. And if you're watching your kids for any length of time, you have that right too. And it's just like when you were raising your kids. You trust them until they prove to you that they can't be trusted. Mm-hmm. And then you watch them like a hawk. And they have to earn that trust back. It's the same way with these apps. Now, Snapchat, do I have a Snapchat account? Absolutely. I could show you Snapchat on the web, but it doesn't do anywhere near what the app does. So I'm not even going to bother you with doing that. Okay, I'm checking my time. I want to make sure I don't run late. So Snapchat is what, if we were going to talk to our grandkids, that's what they would encourage us to do. There's a downside to that for them. If we sign up for their Snapchat accounts, if we follow them as a user, we not only can see their conversations to us, but we can see their conversations to all their 18 million friends. So that's not really a one-on-one relationship. I still tend to text my granddaughter and my grandson. Why? Because I know it's a one-to-one relationship. And I know that they tolerate that. They're not old enough to have Facebook accounts, so Facebook's not an option. I don't even try calling them because I know I won't get a hold of them. Okay, before we go into demonstrations, I want to see if demonstrations are worth it. How many by a show of hands have never seen a Facebook site? Just a couple, all right? You want a demonstration of Facebook? Okay, then we can go through it real quick. We can go real quick. Okay, make this work. Come on, do it that way, that way, that way. How about a LinkedIn website? Most of you probably haven't seen it. Most of you don't have a use for it. Okay, then we can skip LinkedIn. How about the Google Plus website? You ever see that before? No? I can show you what that looks like. All right. We'll do that. I want to do this first. I think this is important. This was the bonus section. Y'all Google things to find things, right? And you get a whole list of places you can go to get information. So when you do that, how do you know that those sites are actually safe to go to? How do you trust them? How do you know that they're not fronts for something else? You don't, do you? You blindly accept what Google says is a valid website, and you click on it, and God help you if you go someplace you shouldn't. Okay? Wouldn't you like to say that you've got at least some idea of somebody saying that this website is at least well known? You can. There's an absolutely free tool from McAfee called Site Advisor. www.siteadvisor.com. Okay? It shows you, when you search, what's safe, what's questionable, and what you should go away from. Now, this is based upon McAfee's research. They have a database of websites, and they scan these websites looking for questionable activity. Some of these websites they flag as yellow could have been reported as having malware. or could be, now this is not content. This is safe in terms of virus protection. Okay, has nothing to do with content. So it's not going to keep out porn, well, it'll keep porn sites out only if they have been known to be transmitters of bad things, not content. All right? And I'm distinguishing bad things as viruses as opposed to content. All right? So McAfee won't tell you if the content is bad. It'll tell you if the site is just safe to go to. Completely free. Wasn't always. Not too terribly long ago, McAfee was charging, I think, 25 bucks to get this. Now it's free again. So, and it works pretty well. I have it on all my systems. This little blurb in here is exactly from their website. What you get when you do a Google or do a Yahoo or some other search is you get one of these three symbols, safe, caution, or warning, on the right above the link itself. And it'll tell you, based upon its research, that the site is a safe place to go to. Now, that's not going to tell you if the quality of the information is any good. Mm-hmm. It's just a safe place to go to on the web. There are some really nice benefits. And again, this would be certainly beneficial for you to have the day after your kids have been over. Okay? So, is this a safe place? It gives you an idea of what's called a peer review. McAfee sometimes solicits input in their database as to, was this a safe place? You recently visited this website. What did you think of it? Were you infected by it? Did you have any problems with it? Okay? It works in most social media sites like Facebook. So if you ever take a look in your wall where you've got all these posting with links and things like that, you'll find a little check mark if that link you've got to is safe. That's a huge improvement in social networking sites. Because up to this point in time, we had no idea if that posting that came from your bestest buddy was a bot infection or not. Whether his Facebook account was hacked. Okay? Keep in mind that this is just another tool for you to gather information. Okay? Personal experience says you need to learn to be wary of where you go. Because again, as I just said, even your bestest buddy in the world could have had his Facebook account hacked and is posting junk. So if it seems too good to be true, what's the rule? It probably is. Bottom line is, how much do you trust a database? If you trust it explicitly, click on anything you want to. But if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. I don't trust them completely. More protection. This is really cool. This is what I call system protection. This is not individual browser specific. This is the way you can protect your system or your entire network. This is content filtering. This is allowing certain things to get through on your computer on the web and blocking other things. You ever hear something called NetNanny? Remember? NetNanny is a tool that you can install on your computer that filters out websites. Generally, there's a fee for that. The last time I looked, NetNanny was about 50 bucks a year. It's like an antivirus thing. You have to resubscribe to it. And it provides a list to your computer of what's safe to go to in terms of content and what's not safe. OpenDNS has a service available that you make a couple of very minor changes in your computer and it changes the way that you can receive information. It all of a sudden makes your machine much safer to use in terms of content. It has put together a list of what they consider to be family inappropriate websites. It's content filtering. Now, if you use the web for porn, you don't want to do this. But, and I'm not being judgmental at all. There are people that do. And if that's what you want to do, fine. You need to bulk up on your virus protection and just be aware that one day you're going to get bit. I'm sorry, that was a wrong thing to say. You're going to get caught. If you want to protect yourself from that occasional slip up, and it happens, the occasional slip up where you get assaulted by a page of breasts, and it can happen, you want to use this type of filtering service. Here's a perfect example. When I was teaching at DePaul, it's an entry-level computer internet class, and I was trying to show people how certain images were protected, where you couldn't download an image. And if you go to the White House website, if you go to the White House website, the seal of the President of the United States is not downloadable. It's protected. And I wanted to show my students that. Now keep in mind that I'm in a lecture hall here with about 80 other students and a screen that's probably 80 by 60. And as I'm walking through the room, I'm telling people to go to certain websites. Now, what's the website address of the White House?
WhiteHouse.gov.
WhiteHouse.gov. You all know that now. What do you think I told them to enter? .com, which is a well-known porn site. All of a sudden, I've got 80 students, more than half of them co-eds, looking at things that are on the web that are completely unintentional. And it allowed me to tap dance a little bit and say, hey, here's a perfect example of how extensions are important on a website, where a simple entry can take you to someplace you don't want to go. If I had been doing this content filtering, though, there'd be no chance of having that happen. Okay? So OpenDNS, the filtering system, allows us to protect ourselves from ourselves. Okay? And it also protects your grandkids from doing that too, intentionally or unintentionally. Anybody who uses your system. Now, it's really simple. I'm not going to go into the details. Okay, I've provided a link in the presentation that shows you exactly how to do it, gives you very good instructions. I'm going to try to demo it if it works, okay? But it can either be done on a system-by-system basis, which is what I've done here, or I can enter this information in my network router. You know, the thing you get from Comcast or AT&T? If you know how to get inside of that thing, you can do these changes here. And that protects your entire network. How to do it is available at that link right there. Okay? Now, if you and this presentation will be up on the web. You won't be able to click on the link, but you'll be able to very carefully type that down. This takes you to OpenDNS's website. And this gives you have to exactly type in exactly the way that looks. That is a lowercase l, lowercase y / number 1, lowercase v, uppercase n. You see where I'm going? You type that exactly and that'll take you to OpenDNS's website that'll tell you how to enter this information in your system, either on an individual system or on a router basis. Okay? All right, before I do this, let me do a fast demo of Facebook. By the way, if I did this right. Now, I'm trying to enter a phrase in here, a website, called happytales.com. And it's not working. Bear with me just a second. Happytales.com is a legitimate website. It happens to be for an animal shelter, but I must enter that DNS information in wrong. Okay, I'm back alive again. So, if I were to enter Happy Tales, what will happen is McAfee takes over. And it says, this is a yellow site, you see where it comes up? And it says, are you sure you really want to do this? Well, I could definitely do that. I can say, no, I don't want to do that. Or I can go down here to say visit anyway, and you'll find that Happy Tales is a referring page site for a legitimate series of businesses. But do you understand what the term Happy Tales could take me to?
Yeah.
Okay? So that's a perfect example of how McAfee will protect you. And if I could type anything, I'd be awful dangerous. Now, perfect example. Look at the top here. See the two versions? HTTP, HTTPS. Which one should I choose?
Yes.
Okay. It looks no different. But I do have a secure connection. Okay? Now, I don't know what we're going to see here because I haven't looked at this. And again, if I could type, I would be dangerous. The problem is I see so many different keyboards and they're all a little bit different. And I know, do not want to tell this thing to store. And it's going to probably say, am I using this? If the first time I've logged in via this computer. So it's protecting me. See how Facebook is protecting me from myself? Now, I would normally say if this is a brand new computer I just bought, or would use this computer again, I would say save the browser. Okay, because this is, to me, a public system, I'll tell it don't save. All right, so this is my Facebook page. And I can't tell you, that it hasn't changed over the years, okay? You've got the area here in the center, which is the area that I can either post to. I could put a note here to that would go out to all of my friends. See how it's set up to go to my friends? Or I could limit that note to only certain groups. See that? Okay. And I could put in photos or videos or anything like that I wanted to. Now, slide down a little bit here. You can see that my daughter is active in using Facebook, and she posts all these kinds of things. Again, why am I using Facebook? To see pictures and find out what my grandkids are doing, and that's exactly what I'm doing. There's pictures of my grandkids, all right? So you get the idea. I could put a little comment here if I wanted to, or I could say, I really like your post. I think you've done a nice job. I think that this is something that is to be commended. I can like this, okay? And my like got placed along with 25 other people. So I could, if I wanted to, I could post a return comment. All right. Today happens to be my grandson's birthday, so you're seeing an awful lot of happy birthdays to Alex. That's one thing, by the way, that Facebook does very nicely, is it reminds you of your friends' birthdays. So if you're like me, I do a lot of belated birthdays because I don't check in every day with Facebook like I should, but I at least stay out of some hot water. So that works out well. Okay, so what do you put on Facebook? Anything a little heart desires. Whether it's socially relevant or not. I can post anything I want to. And the thought behind that is that someone would care. You see where I'm going? Now, could I post that I just put cream in my coffee? Sure I could. Who would care? So what I tend to restrict myself to are things that are socially relevant to others. Like, I could post today that I'm teaching today a class at the Sun City Computer Club. And that would be socially relevant to everyone here in this room. Now, if you were all my friends, you would probably get some benefit out of that. Since you aren't, you don't get any benefit out of that at all. All right? So, what you post really depends on who it's going to. On this right-hand side here is a chat area. If I wanted to chat with a person that's online, anyone that's grayed out like these are not online. They're currently not on their computers. Anybody that's listed here in dark is currently online. Okay? On the left-hand side here, I've got things that I can do. Facebook allows me to play games. Okay? The games that I'm currently playing, you remember Farmville? I'm not playing it anymore, but Farmville was a game that we would play against each other, where we would plant crops and harvest crops and do all that kind of stuff. And it was a social competition. And it was real big for a while. We got to the point where I couldn't go to bed at night until I harvest my crops. And plant crops for the next day. And then I woke up one morning and said, why am I doing this? Okay? So you kind of get the idea that, social networking is only relevant to those that want to do this. You know what I want to do? I'm going to call it quits right now with the demo. All right? Because I certainly want to take time to answer questions, and I want to be done by quarter after, to be respectful for all your time. So, can I? All right. Well, then let me go into Google Plus. Just be out of here by 1. Okay. Now, Google Plus is a little bit different than most social networking sites, okay? Most social networking sites like Twitter or like other communication sites require you to have a handle, an ID that knows yourself, okay? Google Plus uses an email address. And it's awkward in that a lot of people change email addresses on a regular basis. So once you sign up for an email address and you change your email address, all of your Google Plus information no longer is valid, because you can't link an old email address to a new email address. So what Google really is trying to get you to do is to use their Gmail. If you have a Gmail address, you already have a Google Plus account, whether you know it or not. So I'm going to log in with my Gmail address. And it knows me. That's dangerous. It doesn't know my password. That's good. And by the way, I don't use the same password for many of my websites. My Facebook password is different than my Google website, it's different than my shopping websites, it's different than my bank website. I have a scheme that I use. I know what the scheme is. Do not store my password. Let's go here and take a look. Are we doing anything? There we go. Maybe not. There we go. Okay. Now, do you see how? And again, this is content that it's coming from Google. So, do you see how this is a little bit more not as built upon a framework as Facebook is? First thing it's asking me is, what do I want to participate in? And it's because this computer has not been set up for this thing. All right? So I'm going to continue to Google Plus. This is the things that I could be looking at. Now, first thing to notice is up here in the left-hand corner is the place where I would post. Who would it go out to? Any of my Google friends. Okay? Google has this concept of circles, which is just kind of like a friend in Facebook. Okay? So I can have many circles, where in Facebook I can only have one levels of friends. So Facebook is a one to many, where Google Plus could be one to smaller groups. Some of the people that I'm connected with have made some postings. Okay? There's nothing in here that would prevent them to do that. Now, some of these things, I can do videos as well. I'm just kind of scrolling through this. I have no idea what's in here, so we'll find out. So you kind of get an idea. It's very much like Facebook in terms of what I can paste. The big difference between Facebook and Google Plus is what's called Google Chat. Google Chat is it's kind of like a chat room where you text things in, hand things in, and video. So it's, if you want to consider Snapchat, Snapchat is actually an extension of Google Plus. Snapchat is more popular than Google Plus. Therefore, Google Plus is probably going to go bye-bye. That's just how it works. Okay? So the idea of Google Plus here is very similar to Facebook. You have to understand that the people that use it are your 18, maybe your 16 to 22 age group. Okay? They're the ones that need to be socially relevant and conversing with each other very closely. Okay? They're also the same group that would be geared toward using Snapchat. And because they all have iPhones, they use FaceTime. So you see that Google Plus really isn't going to catch on. It very well may be a better idea and better developed than Snapchat. But you have to go by the audience. How many of you have beta machines? Beta was technically a much superior design, and yet it never caught on. Okay. Questions? In the back there. Instagram. What's Instagram? That's a good question. Thank you.
Wait for the mic.
I heard I can say, what's Instagram? Instagram is a tool that is, you can get it on the web, but it's more geared towards a smartphone app where it allows you to post pictures. Okay? And it's a social networking site that you post the picture and it goes to your friends. Okay? It was popular for a while. It's not as much so anymore because Snapchat has taken over. All right? Do people still use Instagram? Absolutely. Absolutely. And who's using Instagram? Us. Our grandkids aren't. Not as much. They're using Snapchat. Okay? If they're using Instagram, it's targeted. Now, one thing that I didn't tell you about is I've only talked to you about the positive places that kids are going. There's a couple of really bad ones. There's an app out there called Ask FM. It's a website that allows them to post anything they want to about anybody they want to. No regulation.
What is that?
Ask FM, ASK-FM. It's done by the people who do Ask.com, which really surprised me because Ask is a pretty reputable organization. Ask FM is the place where all that bullying is done. You've heard about bullying being such a big problem with teenagers and tweens. This is where it's done. And they are brutal. They are absolutely brutal. Most, I'm going to use the phrase here, responsible parent, and I'll put that in quotes. Most responsible parents that are watching their kids and the way the kids are using their phones, will not tolerate Ask FM if they know about it. But many of the tragedies you hear regarding teen suicide have been brought on by postings and the tirades done via Ask FM.
Will,
Question.
Good.
I'd like to put a plug in for one group that possibly
you didn't put enough emphasis on.
Okay.
And that is the above the baby boomers, okay?
Okay, the 65 and older group?
The, pardon,
The 65 and older group?
65 or older, yes, much older. Anyway, to those people also whose main communication has been, the top of the priority has been family. I think you could continue doing that without all of the bells and whistles. I think you could continue to do it with the telephone and with the email. Because I'll tell you, there is nothing better than to hear someone tell you they love you on a telephone rather than on a stupid machine.
You're
okay?
absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right.
So consequently, I'd like for those people who are not that familiar with all of this other stuff, not to get frightened. Still use that telephone and educate, if they haven't been educated yet, your family, to know that communications is busy, is important, and communicate them regularly with those forms of communication that you are familiar with.
You're absolutely correct. And as that one slide said, we tend to do the things that we know. We tend to communicate in the way that we're most familiar with. And still, we're most familiar with talking to people, calling them on the phone, even sending letters. If that's what you want to do, then continue doing that. Communication, again, to fulfill that need to be a social animal, do it any way you want to. This presentation was geared towards social networking via the internet, those types of tools, so we focused more upon that. But you're absolutely right in saying that we need to do this however in doing so. Thank you so much for your comment.
What about FaceTime? You didn't touch on it at all.
FaceTime is the same thing as Skype, except it's on an Apple product.
And you're communicating over telephone numbers. How
Yep.
safe is that?
You can do it both via an iPad with the most recent iOS upgrade and an iPhone. It comes up just like Skype does. With Skype, you log in via a username. So for instance, if
But you're going over the internet with Skype.
well, FaceTime uses the
FaceTime,
internet.
you're not going over the internet, you're going over
Not
the
true.
phone line.
Not true.
Because you call a person.
No,
on
no,
their
no, no, hang on,
iPhone,
not true. You're using the internet service as the transmission media. You're using the internet service, but your login name is your phone number. Okay? So your phone is a smart enough device to know to use whatever service is available. It's going to communicate with the internet if you're tied into Wi-Fi, and it's going to communicate via your cellular service if you're not tied into a Wi-Fi. So the difference between FaceTime and Skype is with FaceTime, it's only good for Apple products, and it uses your phone number as your login name, as your username. So if I wanted to talk to one of my kids using FaceTime, I would use their phone number of their cell devices to reach out to them. If I was going to talk to that same person on Skype, I'd have to know their username, which may be Patty Lynn or Susie Smith or whatever that case would be. Okay? Skype works only via internet. FaceTime works only on Apple products, but you can use a phone line. I'm sorry, you can use the cell phone service or the internet-based service. That answer your question? I didn't see where that came from.
One of the things that you haven't mentioned is iMessage, which comes free with the Apple products. And the other thing is dealing with these and driving. That one thing with iMessage is if I happen to be driving and I get an iMessage, when I get to a place where I can read it, then I can read it at that time and send a message back. It isn't like you have somebody sitting there with bated breath waiting for every communication.
I'm not familiar with iMessage. I'm still pretty new to iPhone products. I'll be honest with you, I was a solid user of Windows and Android products up until about 4 or 5 months ago, and it completely met my needs. But I went out and got an iPad based upon my experience with an Android tablet, and personal experience says it just works better. It works different though. It's not it runs smoother, but there are certainly limitations. So don't think that an iPhone or an Apple product is utopia. It's not. They all have their pluses, they all have their minuses. I went over to an iProduct primarily because my kids have got it. And, you know, they've got them, they use them. If I want to stay with them and be able to do the same things they do, that's what I have to do. Okay? Again, peer pressure. Could I have gone with a Droid? Absolutely. Would have missed out on FaceTime.
Could you explain hashtags?
Yeah, I can. Hashtags are used by Twitter. Hashtags are basically worthless. Hashtags allow you to put a tag, a label on a text that you're tweeting, okay? Something that you're tweeting to a group of people. So I could then go into Twitter's website and search for all the hashtags on hashtag D, Dancing with the Stars, whatever it is, DWI, whatever it is, yeah. I could search for all of the hashtags, all of the texts that have that label in the tweet. Now, sorry, but I just don't see the value of that. I don't get Twitter. I don't have the need to communicate with thousands of people. I don't think thousands of people really care what I have to say about anything. Therefore, I don't use Twitter. I'm not trying to, you know, if I was a politician, by all means, I would want to get my message out to as many people as I could. But I'm not a politician, I'm just me. Why would I want to send a message to more than 5 or 6 people at a time? Now, hashtags are great for businesses because that promotes the business. You get a hashtag on the TV screen, especially if it's not in one of your commercials, that's like gold. That's free advertising. Especially if that hashtag draws in people to take a look at your website or get the name out about your product. Do you see the positive sides of hashtags? For most of us in this age bracket, we don't care. We don't see the value of using hashtags because we don't tweet. And most of us don't even have Twitter accounts. I have one purely because I teach social networking. I do not have it on my cell phone. I don't want to get bothered all night with hashtags coming from God knows where. Okay? So I don't want to taint you. But you have to have a need to be able to use this service in order to use the service. And if your primary method of communication is to pick up the phone, maybe as fancy as you might get is maybe a conference call, where you get 3 or 4 of your buddies together on the phone and discuss what you're going to do for the poker game coming up this weekend. Okay? That's our version of the hashtag, is a conference call. And yes, there are free conference call services available. Anthony, question?
Talking about Snapchat,
Mm-hmm.
I have a young granddaughter, and she's on a site called Kik. Are there many sites like that, and how do you monitor them?
You don't. If you're a parent, now God help you. Seriously, these kids are into everything, and it changes. Snapchat right now is the most popular thing. Tomorrow it may be something else. The day after it may be something else. You gotta just talk to your kids and find out what they're doing with their phones. You have to, and keep in mind that these apps are available with kids as little, as young as 8 years old. iPods, which were not typically communication devices. We think of them as music players. They're not. They have access to the internet, therefore they have access to all of these apps. So you gotta be, as a parent, ultra careful as to what your kids are doing, and you have to just let them know that Big Brother is watching, and then you have to reinforce it. And in the case of my grandkids, they know if they step out of line, they lose their phones, they lose their devices, and it's just the way it is. So, you know, there are consequences for our actions, and they learn young.
Will, we'd like to thank you very much.
George,
for an
thank you.
Excellent presentation. We'd also like to wish everybody a happy holiday season, and we'll see everyone next year.
George, thank you. Thank you. Okay.